We hope you enjoy this episode of the Modern Divorce Podcast. But first, an important message for our listeners.
Embarking on a new chapter? Zach Nutzman of the Darwin Wall team at Realty One Group is your go-to real estate expert in Arizona, specializing in guiding couples and families through their real estate needs while experiencing a divorce. Modern Law's trusted partner, Zach, brings expertise, confidence, and compassion to your real estate journey. Let him help you navigate this challenging time. Zach Nutzman, your modern solution in real estate. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Modern Divorce Podcast. I'm your host, Billy Tarasio, joined by modern law attorney, Hannah Bustos. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Hi, Billy. It's so good to be here. I'm very excited.
Well, I'm happy to have you here. Happy to introduce you to our viewers. You are relatively new to modern law and relatively new to lawyering. So let's dive in. Tell people a little bit about your background and what made you decide to go to law school.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I am from Arizona, born and raised. But when I went to my undergrad, I decided to go to the University of Mississippi in Oxford, Mississippi. And so I went out there. I was about 17 years old when I first stepped foot out in Oxford. And I really just made the decision to try something new, get new experiences, meet new people, and really sort of immerse myself in the culture over there. And throughout my time at Ole Miss, there was a lot of political activism there. They have a really, really strong and amazing Black community there. And I saw a lot of really amazing advocates out there. And so I had become very interested in the political scene, the advocacy scene there, as well as sort of the legal side of that and how that influences a lot of the advocacy work that they do over there. And so that's really what sort of put me in the direction of law school, as well as sort of just my personal ambitions throughout my life. I had always sort of had that in the back of my head of law school. And so when I started to get towards the end of my time in undergrad there, I started applying to law schools, and I had met with a lot of the professors and things like that at the University of Mississippi School of Law, and I just felt really comfortable continuing my education there. So I decided to stay there for law school and sort of pursue that. Again, they just had a really strong advocacy program there. They had a lot of legal clinics that I was very interested in pursuing, one of them being the Innocence Project there. And so, yeah, I decided to stay in Mississippi, go to law school there, and I did end up participating in the Innocence Project there in Mississippi. And then when I finished up law school, I decided that it was time to kind of take everything I had learned and all the culture I'd immersed myself in and come back to Arizona and sort of start my legal career back here.
Wow, that's an unusual thing. There are not a lot of people who go from the West Coast to the South.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely an interesting experience, to say the least. I learned so much about Mississippi. I'm so incredibly protective of Mississippi and the people. So many of our big historic cultural movements and advocacy work comes from Mississippi and the people there. And so I am very protective of it because think sometimes we can write some of those southern states off, as maybe they uh can't be changed or can't be helped. And really the thing is that so much of our great movements that we all enjoy the benefits of come from the people there and the advocacy groups there. And so that's been a really important thing for me to remind people as I come back to Arizona is how much the people of Mississippi really do create change all throughout the country for everyone.
I love that. You are teaching me something new. I don't know anything about the advocacy that comes out of Mississippi. And you are advocating for a state that has a reputation of being poor. And that is largely the impression that
Mhm.
most of the country has, is that Mississippi is defined by being poor. So
Yeah,
I
and
love your, go ahead.
low education ratings and all of these different things, and all of that is true. And there
Mhm.
are pockets of it all throughout the state of Mississippi, and it's all issues that continue to be uh, prevalent there. Um, but you also have to see that there's a reason that those things are still prevalent based on the local governments and things that are in place there. But there's a whole lot of people there who their voices have been disenfranchised for so many years that the things that they want to better Mississippi are sort of systematically oppressed, and those voices don't get to be heard. And so that's a lot of the advocacy work that's happening, is sort of outside of that political structure, because they've been sort of not able to be a part of it for so long.
So it sounds like I want to ask you a couple of things. So at the Innocence Project, people, I think, know what the Innocence Project is, but can you describe it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Innocence Project, generally, and I think there are Innocence Projects at a number of universities throughout the country, but specifically in Mississippi, we would essentially be receiving applications from incarcerated individuals, generally throughout the state of Mississippi, who have actual claims of innocence based on certain case facts, and we would be examining those case facts and looking over their case in general to see if there were genuine claims of innocence, and then advocating for post-conviction relief based on those facts. And so there's a number of sort of higher profile cases that have come out of those. Namely, I think most people would be familiar with Curtis Flowers. That's a case that came out of Mississippi. There was a big podcast about it and all those things. And that was an individual who was on death row for, I believe, 20 plus years. And it was a claim of actual innocence that was proven, and he was released after all those years of incarceration. And so those are the things that the Innocence Project is working on in Mississippi. And yeah, so it's mostly that post-conviction relief work.
Mhm.
Um, Especially in Mississippi, there's a lot of issues for individuals who were incarcerated, and at the time were convicted by all white juries
Mhm.
and things of that nature. And were Black individuals who were incarcerated for all that time based on those um, potentially misuse of jury selection and things like that. And so a lot of those issues do come into play with some of those a lot older cases.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and so that's a lot of the work they're doing over there.
We're not going to get too deep into this, but are you familiar with the California Innocence Project taking the Scott Peterson case?
I am. I don't have a whole lot of information on it, but I have heard that, and I'm very interested to see what they have going on over there.
Yeah, me too. And I want to do a specific podcast episode on it. So if you do decide to take a deep dive, then we can really spend some time on that because it's an interesting one. But let me ask you, how did you change? Well, it sounds like your interests were really in public policy,
Mhm.
probably legislation, and also criminal law. How did you get to family law?
Yeah, exactly. So I actually personally went through a divorce in my life. My parents got divorced when I was in law school. And so that also helped to sort of pivot me a little bit. I loved the advocacy work that I was participating in, and I had thought about going sort of the public defender route and things like that. But I felt that my advocacy work might be dimmed a little bit if I made that my full-time job, and wanted to hopefully allow myself to pursue advocacy in other areas of my life as sort of secondary to just my full-time job. And so when I when I went through the personal experience of my parents getting divorced while I was in law school, I really had this overwhelming feeling that I wanted both of them to have the support of just someone who really cared and who wanted to sit down and explain to them the things that were happening throughout their case, the things they could expect, and sort of just building a little bit more rapport and more of a relationship with them throughout their case. And it definitely pivoted me towards wanting to help other families who were going through those really pivotal moments
Mhm.
in their lives and these really personal moments in their lives,
Mhm.
to be an advocate for them and sort of, walk them through this new stage of life that they were going to be going through.
Yeah. It's so interesting. You described experiencing a divorce yourself, and most people would immediately assume that you had been married and you had been a party to a divorce. But
Hmm.
children do experience divorce personally,
Hmm.
and especially young adults, and
Hmm.
probably because you were in law school, even more.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. Yeah. You're right. It is an interesting choice of words for me to say that I experienced it personally.
Mhm.
But it felt that way for sure.
Absolutely.
For
It's
sure. And I
accurate.
think yeah, and I think that's another reason why it was so important for me to personally go into that line of work is because, yeah, as an adult, my parents, of course, did the best that they could, but yeah, I was their one contact of who they knew understood the law. And it was just a constant, well, I can't help you. Like, I'm in law school. I don't know. I can't give you advice on that, and things like that. Um, but even with them having attorneys, sometimes it's not possible to provide your clients with as much support as a family member and things like that. And so yeah, it was certainly a unique experience, and it's something I will always take with me as a practitioner, because it shows, that side to you of what level of care you really need to have when dealing with families, and even when they have adult children, there's still dynamics to keep in mind, and so it's very helpful in my everyday practice to really you know, take it step by step and day by day and really build relationships with my clients and that way you can really see things from their perspective.
Awesome. I love that. Hey there, co parents. It's Billy Tarasio with Modern Law, and let me tell you about our Family Wizard, our preferred co parenting app. It's a game changer. I use it myself. With features like documented calls, secured messaging, shared calendars, and more, our Family Wizard makes co parenting smoother than ever. Trust me, I've seen the difference that it can make. Join the over 1 million parents and family law professionals who trust our Family Wizard to make co parenting easier. Ready to take some stress out of co-parenting? Head to ourfamilywizard.com/modern law. So, what do you love about now practicing family law?
There's so many things I like about practicing family law. Like I said in the previous question was I love building relationships, like really having strong relationships coming from the cases that I am working on is a huge part of what I like about family law. I think it's really important to build trust with our clients so that they understand. There are times when your heads are in the weeds of this huge thing that's happening. And so sometimes you really do need someone to have an honest conversation with you, like, hey, this isn't reasonable, or maybe we're stuck on something that doesn't need to be stuck on. And I think if you have already built that rapport and that relationship with your clients, they know that when you're coming to you about that conversation, they have your best interest in mind, and they're not just looking to, make the case easier for themselves or, anything like that. I think it's really important to have those established relationships so that when those hard conversations need to happen, it's coming from a place of trust. I also like to see, really, even in the high conflict cases, um, if we come to a resolution where, the parties are able to rebuild a lot of those relationships and those issues that have been happening throughout the case, when we can see them sort of turn on their heads and sort of make a situation that was really unfortunate for all the parties and created a lot of issues, that they can then move forward. And of course, there's going to continue to be issues, but because of the structure that we've created in these parenting plans and things like that, that they can sort of flourish in those relationships once it's in place, and they don't have to worry about the litigation of everything anymore when we've had a parenting plan put in place that they can follow and sort of start to rebuild that co-parenting relationship. I think that's a really rewarding part of family law as well.
That's a great point. We usually see clients at their worst, but over the course of 12 months, that a case might take, things can change, things can get better. And court orders and boundaries and understanding kind of best practices can really help families. So I love that you focus on that and spend time on that. What do you do for fun? What are some of your hobbies?
Oh gosh, I am a big reality TV person, pop
Really?
culture.
Which types? Which shows do you like?
Oh my gosh, so many different ones. Right now, my fiance and I are stuck on 90 Day Fiance. So we're watching all of those. We love like Love is Blind and all the dating reality type shows. Um, and yeah, I love pop culture things. I also am in the midst of planning my wedding, so that's taking up a lot of my time. We're about, I think, 10 days out from our wedding right now.
Whoa, 10 days out? How are you
Yes.
doing? You seem very calm.
I am calm. We are very, very, very excited, but most of the details are sort of already planned. So it's a lot of just getting the little things together, and we're getting married in New Orleans. So we're really focused just on packing now, packing and making sure we have everything in place.
Where is the honeymoon going to be?
We haven't decided yet. We're gonna take a later honeymoon, probably later in the year, but we're not sure exactly where yet. So I'm open to suggestions.
Where in is his family from New Orleans, or how did you guys choose New Orleans?
So his family is from southern Mississippi, like southeast Mississippi. And so it's pretty close for his family to be able to drive out there to New Orleans. And since my family's coming from Arizona, we wanted to make sure it was a location we could get to pretty easily by accessible airports,
Mhm.
since Mississippi's not the easiest place to get to in terms of the airports there. And so and James, my fiance, and I have spent a lot of time in New Orleans. We love it. We love sort of the feeling and the jazz and the culture and the history there. It's very rich and beautiful. So we wanted to kind of play into all of those themes at our wedding and kind of do all the traditional New Orleans style things there. So we're really excited.
I love that. That's so exciting. I got the opportunity to go to Mardi Gras this
Mm,
year in New Orleans, which was super fun. And one of our full-time employees, Megan, our certified divorce financial analyst, lives in New Orleans and she
yeah.
does Mardi Gras floats. She's in a big club and you're right. Like there is a very rich, unique culture
Hmm.
that is worth experiencing if, you're
Absolutely.
from the Northeast or you're from the West or whatever.
Absolutely. I would recommend going to New Orleans for anyone. It is seriously such a once in a lifetime opportunity if you have a chance to go. It's stunning, and there's so many things to do there, even outside of like the French Quarter and the Mardi Gras partying and everything, all the different areas of New Orleans, there's so much amazing cuisine and culture, and yeah, it is a really cool place.
That's wonderful.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not going to keep you too much longer, but tell me, what are some of your favorite types of cases?
I would say my favorite types of cases are sort of the divorce with kids. Those are my favorite cases. I like when there's a lot of assets to work with, not necessarily the high dollar, that's not what I mean, but a lot of different things to play around with in terms of asset division, and because it can be very the parties can be really creative about settlement solutions, and that's what I like, is when we can sort of leverage a lot of different issues to create a really personal and really specific agreement that the parties can sort of both get what they need out of it. I think those are my favorite types of cases, where both parties sort of are able to walk away with an agreement that feels good for them, and they're sort of all of their needs are provided for at the end of it. So usually when there's a little more to work with, that's easier, versus when we only have a few things, it seems like, it's a little bit harder to get those resolutions. But I love a case where we can get to really great agreements for all the parties.
Mm-hmm. Love it, love it. How does your experience at Modern Law compare with your other experiences at other firms or at practicing in a clinic?
Yeah. My experience at Modern Law has been very, very different from sort of my experience at other firms. I think one of the things that's so obvious about our firm is sort of the culture and the environment that's created to sort of allow for communication between all of the practitioners, just having um, consistent check-ins with all of the attorneys, with all of the practitioners, with the entire firm, to sort of it allows us to bounce so many ideas off of each other and really get different perspectives. And of course, at our firm, we have, so many different practitioners who have, different experiences outside of even legal practice that can help them to sort of give us perspective on different ways to look at things, or different experts that we might need, or things like that that help. And it also allows us to give our clients a more well-rounded representation as well, when there's other people to bounce those ideas off of, and get new perspectives, and just say, maybe my head's been in this for too long. I need someone else to look at it. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a really unique thing, is that we all, it really is a team. Like, we're all working together to represent as much as we can the interests of our clients. So that's really, I think, a unique experience at Modern Law, versus at some of the other firms, especially a lot of the family law firms are so small, and that's not a bad thing. But when you have less practitioners, it's a lot more difficult to get those really well-rounded issues, because there's only so many people to bounce things off of. And it forces you, which can be a good thing, it does force you to go outside of your firm a little bit to get those other opinions. But I think that's a really beneficial part of being at Modern Law, is having those other attorneys around you who can always sort of put a bug in your ear that there's maybe something new that's going on with the courts, or there's something interesting that's happening with the appeals level, or things like that have been really, really helpful so far at Modern Law.
That makes me so happy, because you that's the vision, right? You try, but
Mhm.
whether or not it actually works, whether or not younger attorneys do get the support that they are looking for, the mentorship that they're looking for, is different from just wanting it. So I'm really happy to hear that that is working well for you. Makes me very happy.
You and all the other practitioners at the firm have made that a reality. I do want to say that.
Love it. So happy about that. Okay, I am not going to keep you. I know you've got a trial coming up. I know you've got a wedding right around the corner. Lots going on. Hannah Bustos, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for being at Modern Law and being such a dedicated lawyer and practitioner.
Thank you so much for having me, Billy. It's been so much fun.
Thanks so much for listening to the Modern Divorce Podcast. Remember, anything you've heard today or anything you read online is not the replacement for actual consultation with an attorney and does not create an attorney-client relationship. Even if you called in and we spoke to you, you are anonymous and we don't have your details and you have not become a client of Modern Law. However, we would love to speak with you, or you should seek out the advice of legal counsel or counseling or any other expert near you. And if you have an idea for a show topic or you need to speak with an attorney in Arizona, you can reach me at info@mymodernlaw.com.